Boom. Are you ready, guys? Are you ready for a intellectual slaughter of Piers Morgan live by the top G? No wasting time. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. This is so good.
I want to turn to the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. What is your view of this war?
I think when you call it a war, you're doing a disservice to the people who are having their limbs blown off by some of the most advanced technical weaponry on the planet. It is a genocide and it is disgusting. And it doesn't matter which side of the political spectrum you fall on. When you observe a genocide in front of your very eyes, you should be disgusted.
Which side is waging?
Top G came in swinging. He already knew. He was ready for this double standard hypocrite.
Genocide.
The Israelis are genociding the Palestinians, and you know it as well as everybody else does.
That.
Well, then it seems like your bosses are not allowing you to know it.
What do you think of what Hamas did on October the 7th?
Why are you starting the story in the middle,
I
Piers?
didn't. I just asked you about the wider war. I'm now asking you specifically about Hamas.
I cannot professionally answer that question without talking about the context that led up to October 7th.
Well, nothing.
This is crazy. So, think about this. This guy is so obsessed with October the 7th that he completely erases from his mind. Actually, it never existed, but let's just say hypothetically it did exist. He completely erases 75 years of oppression of a people before that date. And all he does is focus on that date, specifically the double standard. His favorite question, any guest that he has on his show, Muslim, Arab, pro-Palestinian. This is the question that somebody in a very well light, elite, big office somewhere on the top floor told him, if you want to keep your job, you better keep asking that question over and over and over. And Mr. Piers, what do you think it's October 7th?
Nothing, to my mind, justifies what happened on October the 7th.
Nothing justifies what happened before October the 7th, Piers. This is the exact point. So you're talking to a man, I don't know what answer you expect from me, because let's forget the fact that I'm a Muslim. You're talking to a man who is fighting oppression to the best of his ability because he believes that the people in charge of the world are enslaving us all, to the point where I detriment my own life. I end up in a jail cell because I'm speaking against oppression. Then you're asking me what I would do if my family was blown to pieces?
You're not in a jail. Hang on.
You're asking me what I would do if another government came along and blew my family to pieces?
You weren't put in a jail cell because of any oppression.
Absolutely I was.
No, you weren't.
Of course
you
I
were
was.
put in jail cell because you've been accused of serious sexual crimes.
I would not have been accused if I was not monumentally successful in speaking the truth.
Let me ask you again. It's a simple question. Some people can answer it straight away, including pro-Palestinians people.
Wait for it. Wait for it. His favorite question to everybody, actually to nobody other than the Palestinians, pro-Palestinians, Muslims, and Arabs. He doesn't ask anybody else that question. And when he asks other people that question, he doesn't have. Just listen.
I've had on my program, many are very quick to say absolutely. Do you believe Hamas are a terror organization?
And that's a very interesting question, but I think you're peddling asininities.
Well, just answer the question.
Can somebody do me a favor? Google asininities and find out if it's a word.
I know what it means.
If it's not, make sure it's added to Webster on top.
Yo, I told you, it's a slaughter. This is literally an intellectual slaughter by the top G. I am 100% sure if somebody right there, while they were recording this, would touch Piers, this guy is probably shaking. This is insane.
These orders.
Okay, just, are they a terror group?
You're peddling asininities because I'll tell you why, Piers. Let me answer the question.
No, I'm not.
Of course you are.
It's a simple question.
That's like me asking.
I'll tell you why I asked, because the UK, where you were born, prescribes Hamas as a terror
They
organization.
also prescribe me as dangerous to children in schools. Let me explain something to you, Piers.
You're not prescribed as that.
If I were to sit here and say, is stealing wrong? And you'd say yes, and I go, but what if the person stealing is trying to feed their family, and if they don't, their family are going to die? Is it still wrong? You're trying to take a very nuanced and complicated argument and reduce it down to one sentence, which is failure.
You're trying to equate stealing with a mob of terrorists breaking over a border, going to peaceful...
Is that what Israel did?
Wait a minute.
A mob of terrorists breaking over a
Let me
border
finish.
and killing people. Is that what Israel did?
Going through a border on October the 7th.
Oh, October the 7th.
Massacring young people.
There we go again. The famous date. I think Piers Morgan should change his birth date to October the 7th. He's so obsessed with this date. He's memorized it, probably printed it out, and literally like put it in his wall in his room or something. This is crazy. Like the Tap G would say, this is asinine. He's so obsessed with this date. What about the 75 years of oppression prior to October the 7th? Now, mind you, every single Muslim guest that Piers had on his show, every single Palestinian, pro-Palestinian, every single Arab, they did condemn anybody, not just Hamas, Palas, call them whatever you want. They've condemned anybody who kills innocent lives for no reason. Anybody. But he's so obsessed with that date and specifically Hamas and not the apartheid regime of Israel.
People at a festival, massacring families in their homes in a kibbutz, setting fire to them, cutting their heads off, killing babies.
Oh, killing 40 babies, that was true.
Well, fine.
Were the babies vaccinated?
Why are you being flippant?
I'm not being...
Yo, legit, this part right here, like, cracked me up. Look at Piers Morgan's reaction. He's getting slaughtered. If this was a boxing ring, this guy his face would be bleeding right now, no ears anymore. His eyes would be swollen, you know? He's getting, oh my gosh. Whew.
Flippant. The point I am
I
making.
don't find that funny.
No, but the point I am making is that the media lies. Firstly,
No,
secondly,
I can ask you about different things at the same time, right?
Sure.
So I'm asking you first of all, specifically, what is your reaction to what happened on October the 7th?
Sure, I'll answer the question professionally. I do not condone the loss of human life on either side. I think anybody doing anything which directly damages civilians is disgusting and abhorrent. However, I would be an amateur if I could not sit and pretend I do not understand the motivations behind either side. This is not even me taking a side. I understand why Israel is doing what it's doing. I understand why Palestine is doing what it's doing. However, I still call the Israeli actions absolutely abhorrent and genocidal.
Okay, we're going to come to Israel's actions. I promise you. We will ask that question specifically. But
don't speak about master. Don't speak about master. We're going to come to it later. And when we come to it, you better sugarcoat it. Please. I'm shaking where I'm sitting. Please. I need to keep my little job.
in terms of what Hamas did on October the 7th, do you accept that was an act of terrorism?
It's an interesting question because once
It's not
again,
really.
It is.
It's a very straightforward
because
question.
you're the person who would have called Nelson Mandela a terrorist while he was still in jail, and one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter.
I wouldn't
For
have
me to
called him
answer
that.
the question, yes, you would have. For me to answer the question, I have to be very professional, Piers. For me to sit on the outside in Romania with no personal involvement in Israel.
Boom. We're about to rewind that one. We are about to rewind that one, and we gotta put on the glasses in Tap G's memory. In Tap G's I'm losing my words. Let's just rewind it. Oh my gosh. What did he just say?
Called Nelson Mandela a terrorist while he was still in jail, and one
Question specifically. But in terms of what Hamas did on October the 7th, do you accept that was an act of terrorism?
It's an interesting question because once
It's not
again,
really.
It is.
It's
No,
a very
it truly
straightforward
is, because
question.
you're the person who would have called Nelson Mandela a terrorist while he was still in jail, and one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter.
I wouldn't
For
have.
me,
You, Piers, you are the type of person that would have called Nelson Mandela when South Africa was going through apartheid. You are that type of person that would have stood up in the middle of the crowd and called Nelson Mandela a terrorist. You, yo, he is getting slaughtered.
To answer the question, yes, you would have. For me to answer the question, I have to be very professional, Piers. For me to sit on the outside in Romania with no personal involvement in Israel, Palestine, it's easy for me to say, yes, it was an act of terror. However, if I was in Gaza, if I was in an open air prison, if my family had been annihilated by bombs from the sky, if everybody I knew had suffered the loss of a loved one, if I had no chance of any kind of freedom or democracy or standard of life, would I believe it was an act of terror, or would I believe it's an act of resistance against oppression? You have to be very careful how you answer these questions.
So what do you think?
I think I understand what happens when you take people and put them in such an inhumane condition. For anybody to sit and say that you're going to take people and put them in absolutely inhumane conditions and give them no standard of life, and they're not allowed to ever fight back, or they are terrorists.
But I can agree with you.
Anyone who does that is an amateur.
I can agree with you.
He has to stop all this truth. He had to stop all this slaughter. He had to stop it. He had to do it, right? So here's the thing. Andrew Tate, being a professional, is saying, I don't know the ins and outs about the details of this conflict, but nonetheless, the facts are the facts. These people have been oppressed and been having their babies and women killed. It's been 75 years. By the way, the only people that was willing to welcome the Jews when the West were kicking the Jews out, killing the Jews in the Christian world. Guess who was the only people that were open with open arms to let the Jews back in Palestine? Until the Zionists, which is not the Jews, Muslims has no issues with Jews, is the Zionists and the apartheid regime of Israel that is oppressing these people. But no, you're not to speak about it. Let's forget about the 75 years of innocent lives. Let's forget about the recent genocide, blatant genocide right in front of our eyes. No, just ignore your eyes. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about October the 7th, which is Piers Morgan's new birthday. This is crazy. Guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link below that literally shows you that the Jews and the Muslims have lived together, and the Jews actually, their golden age when they were being massacred, when they were being driven out of the Western world, they lived amongst the Muslims, amongst the biggest rulers in the Islamic world, and they've had their golden age. On their own words, by the way, I'm going to put a link in the description below showing you that no Muslim ever oppressed the Jews because they were Jew. They were living together, and no Jew has ever oppressed at that time a Muslim because he was a Muslim. This right here, this is an apartheid regime, a Zionist regime that is doing genocide. And what they're doing is, if you guys want to understand the playbook that is being played right now, I strongly suggest that you sit down and you go study World War II. World War II. It will really help you understand the same exact playbook that Nazi Germany used on the Jews to dehumanize them and paint them to the public like animals, dehumanize them. That's the same playbook, the same propaganda Nazi Germany used to exterminate the Jews is the same exact propaganda that Israel is trying to use and dehumanize the Palestinians, so that when they start this genocide and keep it going, nobody would care, because nobody would look at these people as human beings. But they were wrong. Thanks to social media. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and look out for the comments. Look out for the links below so you can see how the Jews actually living amongst the Muslims were able to prosper between the 7th century all the way to the 11th century. Until next time, boom.